Today we are going to take you on a journey as we look at crucifixes as created by cultures from all across the world. First, let's take a quick look at some crucifixes throughout centuries. Behind each of these crucifixes is a story, an idea, a theology, an understanding of faith. And behind every image, every carving, every brushstroke is a real human being, or a group of human beings who had a desire to visually articulate one of the central events of the Christian faith, the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth, in a way that communicated both their understanding of the event and their understanding of the community. As we journey together through the centuries and then around the world, we will look briefly at the traditional parts of a crucifix and then several examples from all over. Let's get going.
Let's take a brief look at crucifixes throughout history. The earliest crucifixes show Christ, or the corpus, wearing a columbium, an ecclesiastical vestment, and the arms are outstretched without bending under the weight of the body. The arms suggest a welcome or an acclaim by a victorious leader. Often the eyes are open, showing a figure that is clearly alive. In the Romanesque period, roughly the 10th through the 12th centuries, the columbium is gradually replaced by a finely decorated skirt. Most of the body is now naked. The arms bend slightly, which makes the figure appear more realistic. The figure continues to be very much alive, with the head up and the eyes open. Typically, we do not see a wound in the side. In the Gothic period, the 13th through 15th centuries, crucifixes began to emphasize the torment that Jesus suffered, and his wounds and bruises were very detailed. We notice the head begins to slump. Often there is blood flowing from a wound, and the figure of Jesus is clearly dead. Often instead of a skirt, a cloth is tied about his waist. The older crucifixes depicted Jesus as a king or a priest, but the Gothic shows Jesus' role as Redeemer. Jesus' suffering continues during the Counter-Reformation art in the 16th and 17th centuries. Later crucifixes, including the ones we see today, continue to retain many of the Gothic elements: the 5 wounds, the tied cloth, the slumping head, and the sagging arms. However, many examples from the 19th and 20th centuries are considerably less bloody.
What are the parts of the crucifix? The corpus, or the image of Christ during crucifixion. This can be made of metal or wood. The risen Christ is sometimes used in place of a corpus, depicting the image of Christ resurrected. INRI, inscription meaning Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. The crossbar, which is the horizontal part of the cross. The node, a transitional piece between the cross itself and the base or staff. And the rays, which are used as decorative pieces depicting the light of God emanating from the joint of the crossbar.
African wood carvings. Over the last 100 years, Christianity has spread across Central and Southern Africa. Crucifixes were carved from wood, often with subtle imagery. Sculptor George Obeng from Ghana created a crucifix out of mahogany with subtle West African variations on the traditional Western Passion imagery. An unknown artist from the Senofo people of the Ivory Coast shows Christ on the cross in an expressive yet abstract style. The Makonde people of East Africa created a simple and elongated crucified Christ here in dark wood.
Armenia is the oldest Christian nation in the world with a very proud tradition of creating sacred art. The word kahakar means crossstone, which is a reference to upright stone carvings that often decorated crosses dating back to the 9th century. These were often used as grave markers, offerings, or signified sacred historical events. The central winged cross is often placed above a solar rosette and framed by intricate geometric patterns or intertwining vines with grapes and pomegranates, a symbol of fertility and good fortune.
Ethiopian cross. Priests of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church carry ceremonial crosses like this carved wood piece in religious processions or during their normal pastoral duties. They hold them by the center of the staff, which offers a blessing to the faithful. The people then lean forward to kiss the cross. This example is created with a rope motif, which could symbolize the two natures of Christ. It is topped with a Coptic cross, with bars of equal length, and ending in 3 points, which represents the Trinity.
Mexican artist Fernando Arellano uses small metal amulets and charms called milagros, which comes from the Spanish word for miracles, to decorate church altars, sacred statues, and crosses as offerings for healing, protection, and guidance. Nailed to this wooden cross is an artistic arrangement of tiny eyes, ears, arms, legs, and other body parts which represent Jesus' healing touch. You will also see minuscule houses, ears of corn, fowl, and livestock associated with personal prosperity, and miniature images of praying hands, the Eucharist chalice, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Haiti. Gabriel Bienemi was born in 1951 and was once an auto mechanic who had a great talent for metalwork and is considered now to be one of the top 2 leading contemporary Haitian metal sculptors. Using pieces of metal from barrels from a nearby port, Bienemi flattened the metal with hammers and cut out patterns. Then using hammers, chisels, and nails, created this hammered metal crucifix.
This beautifully simplified geometric Jesus, whose outstretched arms form a cross, was carved out of a single piece of wood sometime in the 1950s. Its elegant rhythmic line suggests the hand of a master.
Alexander Gahn. Alexander Gahn creates delicate lacquer boxes that display biblical themes. Gahn created this hand-painted, wood-cut-out crucifix as a way to revive the region's rich, sacred art traditions. Notice the 3 crossbars which are traditional in the Russian Orthodox style. The upper crossbar is where the Roman sign was posted above Christ's head. The 2 angels underneath hold towels to signify their role as ministering servants of God. The inscription on the central crossbar reads, "The crucifixion of the Lord God, our Savior, Jesus Christ. We bow down before your cross, O Lord, and worship your true resurrection." The sun and moon in its upper corners recall Joel 2:31. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord comes. The footrest, tilting downward from left to right, is thought to represent the balance of justice, which is now shifted in favor of the repentant thief, whose sins were forgiven by the dying Christ. The Virgin Mary and the Apostle John have been incorporated into the design of this 3rd crossbar, along with the lance and sponge, instruments of Christ's passion. Hidden in a dark recess beneath the cross is the skull of Adam, whose fall in the Garden of Eden has now been atoned by the sacrificial death of Christ, the second Adam.
East European artist Ivan Mestrovic was a shepherd boy who became a stonemason, and throughout 2 World War periods he became known for creating pieces that combine the art styles of the Byzantium, the Middle Ages, and the early modern Vienna Secessionists, and the French Impressionist sculptor Auguste Rodin. He would not collaborate with any fascists or communists, and was forced to live in exile in the U.S. at Notre Dame University. Mestrovic created this cross for a restored convent on his property.
The Gonzalez brothers. Javier and Pedro Gonzalez, Peruvian brothers, created this folk art crucifix. It is similar to the traditional Arma Christi crosses and displays the arsenal of arms Christ used to defeat the devil. Look closely and notice the little sculpted objects. Many represent images from Christ's passion, including Veronica's veil with the image of Christ, a bag with the 30 pieces of silver Judas was given for betraying Christ, a scourge and rope whip used by the Roman guards, a spear that pierced Christ's side, the sponge filled with the vinegar mixture he was given to drink, the seamless robe of Christ, the dice the guards used to cast lots for Christ's clothing, the cock which crowed 3 times after Peter denied Jesus, the ladder used in the deposition from the cross, the knife from Jesus' circumcision, a palm branch from Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, a Eucharistic chalice, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Interesting to note is that the Gonzalez brothers create their crucifixes from wood-like fibers of the maguey plant, which is known as the century plant. This plant is associated with the tree of life in the mythology of the native peoples of Latin America.
This sacred wood carving has a long history on the Indonesian island of Bali. Wood carver Nyoman Subrata created this cross with a grapevine motif. The grapevine has special theological meaning. The title, Parable of the Vine, suggests Jesus' story of the generous vineyard owner and the laborers in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. It brings to mind Christ's words, I am the vine. In John chapter 15, verse 5, the fruit of the vine becomes the wine, which Christians drink in remembrance of Christ's death on the cross.
Miguel Pineda. The Mexican artist Miguel Pineda uses enamel to create semi-sculpted pieces that include motifs from the Byzantine and the medieval art periods. He was invited to design 36 large enamel-on-copper panels for the doors of the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. This cross is called the Visigothic cross and shows 3 different images of Christ, with the vertical shaft of the Pineda cross, with 2 doves at the top, matched by head-to-head eagles in the bottom panel. The shorter crossbar shows another pair of winged angels. The cross is made with enamel fused to copper.
This cross is decorated in the blue, yellow, and red, which are the national colors of Romania. It is a replica of a grave marker that could be found in the Mary Cemetery in Spanta. It is carved by an unknown Romanian folk artist. The Mary Cemetery contains hundreds of carved oak sculptures with funny poems and epitaphs of the departed. Sometimes they include pictures or scenes from the person's life while they were alive, or the manner in which they died. The inscription on this plaque reads, "To those who are watching us, you will be here too."
Jürgen Volk is a German artist who is best known for dollhouse-like found object assemblage pieces. This pop art image of the cross depicts the tree of life in vibrant graffiti patterns and elementary colors. Notice the heavenly bodies, leafy branches, and budding blooms that appear beneath a bright red heart in this bold contemporary piece.
French-Canadian folk artist Émile Blattou carves a nave-style crucifix out of wood. When explorer Jacques Cartier claimed the Canadian territory for the King of France in 1534, he raised a 10-meter-high cross along the shores of the Gaspé Bay. Over 3,000 crosses can still be found today throughout this Canadian province, which set up a boundary line, road markers, shrines, memorials to the deceased, and offerings of thanksgiving for answered prayers. The crosses are designed in 3 traditional variations: a plain cross, sometimes decorated with a heart or flowers, a cross depicting the Passion of Christ, or a cross with the crucified Christ. Blattou is depicting the crucified Christ in these 2 pieces. The greenish-blue bird atop one crucifix represents the cock that crowed when Peter denied Christ, a symbol for the apostles seen on church steeples across the province.
Stanley Peters' crucifix is entitled Jesus' Thunderbird, a totem pole. Peters chose to represent Christ on the cross as a thunderbird. In Northwest Coast culture, the thunderbird is known as a strong and powerful protector or chief. He rules majestically from the mountaintops, keeping watch over all. He is the Messiah and has come to establish a kingdom rule on earth. He came with fearsome words against sin and hypocrisy, but also offered care and protection to all. Peters includes the eyes of God that are represented by the black ovoids that watch from all 4 directions, from above and below, from wings, which says God is all around us at all times. All races, black and yellow, red and white, are represented in the 4 colors that are taken from nature and found in the earth's circle, on the vertical beam, and all over the thunderbird. Christ as Thunderbird, in dying for us, restores happiness and understanding. He fills us with new dignity and great richness. The figure on Thunderbird's chest appears to be that of a man with his arms outstretched in the cruciform position, and his face expresses pain. It is quite common for Northwest Coast artists to depict one figure inside another, a reminder of the interconnectedness of all life. Thunderbird can be identified in Northwest Coast art by the curled appendages on the top of his head and his sharply curved upper beak, which is similar to that of hawks. He is almost always depicted with his wings outstretched and sometimes with his claws in the back of a whale, an animal he is fond of eating. The crucifixion of Jesus, one of the central events of the Christian faith, is incredibly important to Christians all over the world. This is demonstrated in the fact that the crucifixion is depicted in so many ways, across so many cultures and so many times. You have seen today a variety of examples of the crucifix across cultures, all of which were designed to reach and speak into those communities. Now the task falls to us. What is the most effective way for us to visually articulate the crucifixion of Christ? What images, colors, patterns, or styles come to mind as you consider a crucifix for your community, for your local church, for your particular cultural background? We challenge you to create a crucifix that relates to where you are and the people you are ministering to.